Hi, this is Lucia with Another Way. Welcome back. I'd like to take the next episode and continue our conversation on A Course in Miracles, but I'd like to take the conversation along the lines of the social aspects of A Course in Miracles. Not that it has any, but a social phenomenon does occur with A Course in Miracles that I think it's important to look at, mostly for our own learning, for our own benefit as we progress in its study. And it's really the phenomenon of what happens to the student once they get into the course, and then how that influences the world around them. To begin with, of course, the basic teaching of the course is that we are here to remove the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, and that is what it attempts to teach. How to remove those blocks, identifying what they are, where they come from, and why we are clinging to them, basically, to keep love at bay. Basically because we're we are fearful, we're afraid of the awesomeness of our reality in love, which is our true reality. I'm not going to get into that right now, but it's important to mention it because we are so afraid of that reality that one of the first things that happens when we're studying the course is a resistance. A type of resistance comes in, and it manifests in many different ways. So it may manifest in ways in which, for example, you're going to see many people break out into doing their own spiritual writing. They'll say, okay, this book was channeled from Jesus through Helen Schuckman, the scribe of the course. And again, if you go back to reading the background of the course from a historical perspective, where it came from, it was scribed. It is said scribed because the person who wrote it, Helen Schuckman, with her companion Bill Thetford, they were two psychologists out of Columbia Presbyterian Hospital in New York, and they went through a 7-year experience, basically. And this, the result of this experience was that during the 7 years, she wrote down the course, and the way she received the material was through some sort of inner dictation, not external voices. She was a psychologist, so she would have known enough whether she was suffering from some kind of mental illness. It was, as she has described it, words that would form in her mind, and then they would take form, and then she would understand what the message was, and then she would write it down in shorthand, and then Bill, her colleague, would help her take down that shorthand that she would dictate it to him, and he would type it. And over a process of 7 years, this entire set of material came out and was published. Anyway, the point of all this is that when you get into the material, because it is so transformational, there's a part of you that's, I would say, cozy with how things are, that is comfortable with life in the world the way they are right now for you, with the experience that you're having. And let's refer to it as an it. It likes being me. It likes being you. It likes having that unique, different, and basically separate experience. And the threat of awakening to a more open mind, to a more peaceful mindset, to a more tolerant mindset, and basically to a loving reality, is a complete threat to that aspect of the self. The course refers to that aspect of the self as the ego. It uses some Freudian terminology, so there is quite a bit of content there in terms of Freudian psychology. And the ego is the aspect of yourself that likes being me. And it'll cling to that identity through many resources. And a lot of these resources that we use to be me, to be special, to be unique, are hidden at an unconscious level. So we experience them in our daily lives as some form of sabotage of the things that we want, of the things that we dream of, the things that we aspire to, and all these dreams becoming frustrated, or our desires not really meeting or being met, and constantly being frustrated because our goals cannot be reached. And so you see this resistance to love in so many ways, like for example when you're trying to diet and you know that if you sneak in that dessert, your diet's gonna fail, and then you do it anyway because you really truly don't want to be happy. You really truly don't want to be where you think you're going to be happy. Now, I'm not saying that if you're skinny you're happy. That's not the point. The point is that you had set a goal for yourself. You decided that losing some weight would make you happy. That was your decision. You set out to reach your goal, and in the middle of that process you begin to cheat. You begin to sneak in some dessert and some chocolate, or a pot full of rice or bread or cheese or whatever it is that's your weakness, your Achilles heel, or maybe even alcohol, whatever it is. So even though you have this desire to, in your eyes, be happy by losing weight, then you come in from the other side and sabotage your efforts and self-sabotage your success and your happiness by cheating. Now, why would you do that? So that's the kind of question that you begin really as you observe yourself and get to know that self. As a philosopher once said, know thyself and you will know the universe and God. You can't know the universe and you can't know God until you know yourself. So the more you know yourself through this work with this course, the more you discover all the many ways in which you resist love, in which you resist happiness. And that part of you that resists, is the part that just loves having this experience. So believe it or not, even if your experience in the world right now is unhappy, even if it's a completely miserable experience, there's a part in you that digs it. There's a part in you that likes it. There's a part in you that loves it. And it doesn't care if you suffer for it or if you have extreme moments of happiness, as long as the experience is me. And the fear is that if you open up to love, that if you open up to an all-loving and welcoming universe, or God, or however you want to define it, that you as a me, as a separate me, will disappear. And that's a very, very deep fear that we all have within. And it sounds quirky, it sounds strange, but as you learn to observe yourself, you're going to find out that it's very true. And you're going to find out the many ways in which you have been sabotaging your happiness all your life. That you cheated on your diet, that you cheated on your friends, that you cheated on yourself so many times, that you cheated on your own God, however you see God. That we're always trying to sneak around not to do the right thing. And that's because we are enjoying this experience, and we think that if we do the right thing and if we deliver ourselves to love completely, that me is going to disappear. So that fear, as soon as we recognize what this course is teaching, it kicks in, and it may kick in at different levels and with different, let's say, techniques. But one of the techniques is to abandon the path immediately and sabotage your progress by saying, I already know it. I got it. This is no big deal. And I'm telling you, I know people that have been doing the course for 30 years. I feel like I've been doing it for 10, 11 years, and I've barely, began to scratch the surface. It really is that way. It's a lifetime process. It's not, to transform yourself into a different self. It's a process. You can't do that overnight. And that is really what being born again is all about. It's about becoming a new you, and actually shedding the old you and becoming the real you. And that thing that you have to shed is the ego. And it's not anything real. It's a shelter of lies that you've built to maintain this self-identity. So it's so strong. It's a shield that has become so strong that you cannot undo it overnight. It's a big house. It's a big old mansion that needs to be remodeled. And so you cannot do that overnight. So when many students of the Course begin to study the Course, they're enamored by it. The language is beautiful, it's poetic, it's tremendously deep, it's deeply spiritual, and you fall in love with it very quickly. As soon as you get what it's teaching, that resistance kicks in, because I don't want to change. And that's basically the human being speaking, and not the spiritual being, because that's your reality. The spiritual being is your reality, but the human being wants to continue to have this experience, and it clings to this experience. So what you're going to find is this resistance. Resistance will manifest in many ways. One of the ways it manifests is you'll begin channeling other material, saying, oh, basically, subconsciously your ego is trying to one-up Jesus. I mean, Jesus is said to be the author of this material, and if that's a problem for you, just park it aside, because that's something that will need to be addressed at some point. But believing in Jesus is not a factor and not a requirement. In fact, it's not a factor at all. So this is not any kind of religious proselytism or anything like that. So anyway, getting back to these resistances in the social phenomena of the Course, which is where we started. The reason I get into the resistance aspect is because it actually influences the social aspects of the Course. Outside of the Course itself, of the book itself and the teachings themselves, there's a community that has formed around these reactions that we have about the Course. So you will see groups that have formed cults. You will see groups that have formed churches. You will see groups that have, or authors that have gone off and written other channeled materials. Yes, we can all channel, because we all have that aspect of love within. And we all as well have an ego. And as long as we do not learn to discern between the two, you could be channeling the ego, and you could be writing books that sound fantastic but are actually driven to pull you away from love and kind of drown you in a world of fame and fortune, because that's what you end up pursuing anyway when you get into that aspect of the Course. Not to say, and this is not a direct criticism on anyone who has written a channeled book as a consequence of studying the Course, or as part of the process. That may be part of their process. I'm just saying that if this happens to you, just take a close look, because a lot of times that is just a resistance, a way to resist the teaching. I'm not going to put it in practice. I'm just going to write about it and go teach other people, and then that way I avoid having to live it, and I avoid having to undo my ego. So I'll just go teach others to undo their ego, and that's fine. That's pretty much what's going on. So another way that you resist is your ego gets stronger. You may begin to experience more anger instead of more peace, and things will just completely become upside down in the beginning, because you're restructuring your mind, and things will change. And that may instill some fear, and you may just walk away because you don't want to deal with it. You want things just the way they were, even if they were bad. So all these things may happen. You're going to have different ways of resisting, just like when you're doing your diet and you decide to cheat. It's the same thing. The Course is diet for the spirit. It's going to put you on a very slim diet of judgment. It's really about learning not to judge and criticize and condemn and separate and see others as the enemy and the guilty ones, and just to kind of completely drop that mindset that I'm a victim, the victimhood. So it's a process, and the mind will resist. So I just kind of wanted to share that, because that was an experience, has been an experience, and it will continue to be an experience. So it's something that as you begin to observe yourself, there's nothing that you need to do anything about. Just notice it, so that what I'm hoping to do through this is maybe help prevent some of the trappings of the Course, and help students really get on with the real work, and not get swept away by all these fantasies of becoming famous and channelers and authors. And there's just a lot of that going on, that there's enough of it already. But what I'm noticing is, what we really need is more people living and practicing the principles and making that inner shift. And again, the Course is so deep and so far-reaching that we don't need to get into why. In fact, even if we don't, nothing happens. That's the ultimate reality, is that nothing real can be threatened. and nothing unreal exists, and therein lies the peace of God. That's how the Course begins, and that's ultimate reality. But in our illusory state, where we think that we are individuals and we are powerful as individuals and we love our individual power, it's very difficult to even grasp the fact that there is another reality, a greater reality, a better reality. But we'll get into that in subsequent chapters. Anyway, thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you at the next one.